every time we were starting to work the problem along the way. So is it technique? Is it belief? Is it confidence? What is it? Inevitably, the self-talk of nobody understands what I do. Nobody will pay me for what I do. And I was like, well, was it Henry Ford? Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. I can't change your belief.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And when you sit down to focus on something and you write, really trying to get your head around the subject and all that, it's all you keep thinking of. Everything that's said in the green room just kept coming back to that thing I was working on. And when this comes out, I will have already done that thing. And so, sorry to spoil the opportunity, folks, but I'm giving a little talk about the flag on Flag Day. So if you missed it, you'll have to watch the reruns when they come out on HBO and Netflix.
Working on that contract, Dad. We're this close.
Yeah,
this close.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably will. Man, I had something. See what? That's what happens. Whoo, man, I had.
You can blame it on me. I cut you off.
I lost it all. But the good news is it's been found, and it's been found by our guest and good friend Leslie Hassler, who can be a hassle, as you were saying right before. I mean, I haven't talked to her family yet to see, but with a name like Hassler, I think you're making your way and helping people. Some people call it hassling.
Well, we do live up to the name, right? We try to live up to the name, the greatness in our names.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I think if somebody thinks you're hassling them, then they don't need your help.
Or
go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, or could it be that if you're so comfortable that any growth feels like a hassle, then it might be your greatest opportunity.
There you go. Well, that's what they're thinking before they hire you. I'm in that mode of they're already in the circle and they're starting to feel like it's a hassle. And it's like, well, ain't you getting anything? I mean, is it helping you? Right? I mean, because that's what you're doing. You're helping their businesses grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, where do you focus on that? I mean, well, let me back up. Let's stay in the hassle zone. Have you had a client? I mean, we're not counting your kids. Have you had a client go, you're just hassle? You're becoming a hassle.
Yeah, actually, I have one right now. I was talking to him this morning. I was texting him a few things, and he was just like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm giving you what you said you wanted. But, blah. And I'm like, well, I understand. That's why I'm here. And if, I always say that it's really simple to get good business growth and get your goals. It's just not always easy. And some days you do need to have somebody that just helps nudge you through. But yes, I will tell my clients, I said, at the end of the day, you will always love the end result. You just may not love me every day.
Were you talking? I had coffee with Chris Messina yesterday, a company called Quark, does a bunch of AI stuff. He said that exact same thing. It's, growing your business is simple, but it's not easy. So is that the client you're referring to?
No, but okay. I do believe it's a good idiom, a good truth out there.
I was going to say on that, Leslie, the interesting thing that comes to mind for me is I've said this in my like coaching world, the rugby world a lot, is the people you hassle the most are the ones you see the most in. And it's like, the whole, and I haven't used the word hassle in this context, but it's like, look, if I'm not coaching you, if I'm not yelling at you, that's not a good thing. That means I might have given up on the fact that you could get better, right? If I'm on you every single day, it's because I see a lot of potential in that. Could you talk a little bit about how that plays into it? Because I think that's such an interesting piece of like us as the coaches. We're like, I just want to pour into you because I see what you can do. But at the same time, it's like, oh gosh, Camden's yelling at me again. Like, what the hell is going on here? It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah, it is a weird thing because I do think, I was thinking about this in a couple of contexts this morning, that one of the things we do is try to call people into the best version of themselves, call people into the best goal that they have. To your point is that we often can see more in others than we necessarily can see in ourselves. We're too close. There's a phrase that's like, when you're in the picture, it's really hard to see the frame. And that's why it's really super helpful to have an outside set of eyes who sees the whole kit and caboodle. But it is kind of one of those things to where I was just joking. We say in my family, it's almost like a good, what do they call a roast? The comedic roast. It's like if you're not, if we're not rubbing on you a little bit, then it means we don't love you. This is love.
Exactly.
But it's enough that we can compare that you're like, really, you said you wanted X. You're here to play Y. Why? Step forward. Let's play. I believe in you. Do you? Do you believe in you? Because I can have enough belief for you for a bit, but you still have to step forward.
Do you think that the gap from your perceived potential in somebody, this is going to be a big one, get ready, your perceived potential in somebody and their actual performance, do you think that's generally a case of their own belief in what you're seeing? Because I think that's the interesting thing. It's like, I can help anybody. And if you just listen, I can help. It's like, well, we like to think that as coaches, but at the same time, there's folks out there that ain't going to take the help, or they're not going to actually grow, and all those kind of pieces there. How do you tease that apart?
So I definitely believe belief has to be there. I mean, it's one of those core things. Even if you are like discouraged and you've had a good run of bad luck and you're a little down, if you will, if there's not that kernel of belief in the possibility, I can't give it to you. I can't give it, I can't help a lot of people, but they have to want that and they have to believe there's something better. Because then I know you'll at least find a way to trust. Because if you don't trust us and trust our experience and trust what we ask you to do, then you're not going to get that much closer. And I liken it to say that if you want a different enough result, then you're going to have to do things differently enough to get that different result. And when it's on our own, we change, but we change like 3%. But our 3% feels like 300%. And then, somebody like this team on this call would say, I love that. That's 3%. Can you give me 60%? Can you give me a little more? Can you lean in a little more? And I think it takes, I don't know, an outside objective set of eyes to be able to kind of see that. But hands down, we have I had one of my early clients that we were working on her business, and she was like, first thing she would say is, nobody gets me, nobody understands what I do, nobody will pay for my stuff. And I was like, really? Well, let's work on the value proposition. That's value proposition 101. We worked on it. We doubled her leads. She converted nothing, 0 through the entire, and we're like, wow, that's interesting. Let's look at your sales conversations. Let's listen in to what you're saying. Sales conversations, not stellar, but not bad. I mean, average, should have gotten something, 0. And every time we were starting to work the problem along the way, so is it technique? Is it belief? Is it confidence? What is it? Inevitably, the self-talk of, nobody understands what I do. Nobody will pay me for what I do. And I was like, well, was it Henry Ford? Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. I can't change your belief. I can change your reality if you have just a little seed of the belief of something possible.
Well, whether you realize it or not, you smell fear. People smell fear. We have been evolved to where it's different. We sense it, we feel it, we hear it in a different way, and generally speaking, we don't even realize that's what we're smelling. What's that funky thing, and you hear it. And I've been saying for years, all the one-on-one coaching I've done over the years over the phone, I can pick up tonality changes. Even though I'm half deaf, I can still pick those things up. And I think that's helping clients overcome that fear is such a great thing to do, and changing that belief. And my original, before I went on that diatribe, my original thought was for a question was, have you ever, I got to remember the question again. Have you ever had a client that, back joking about the hassle thing again, but they wouldn't change that belief. They wouldn't get out of the imposter syndrome or the nobody buys my shit, so why should I, I'll make a sales call. I'll do a sales call, but nobody's going to buy it. I'll do it to show you, Leslie.
Yeah, I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah. Prove me wrong.
I'll show you nobody wants my stuff. Yeah.
I'll show you nobody. I will say that, yes, of course, I've had those clients. We tend to have them less frequently now than we did.
Is it because your value proposition changed?
Of course, my value proposition has changed as I have evolved, right? But I also think there's an element of being able to ask the right questions and look for signals and signs in that initial call that tell you whether or not this is going to work. And I mean, honestly, here's mine. If you complain about everything and it's always someone else's fault, always somebody else's fault.
That son of a bitch.
Chances are, right? If we argue over, like if I gave you an abbreviation, like we were just in DC, right? Abbreviations everywhere. If I gave you abbreviation and we argued over the abbreviation, chances are, not going to be the best fit. Like there are these little signals that we've just found, but I will say, they do tend to sneak in, and we tend to run through maybe once every couple of years or so. But I do believe we've gotten really good at asking the right questions of our potentials, people that we can partner with and work with to find that. But to your point, Otis, I think the longer you do it, the more you're like, and that's a no. You're like, hi, my name is so-and-so. And you're like, and I can tell you the 4 problems that are at play right there, right in that introduction. So we're always willing to help. And I will say, though, we do have clients that work on different timelines. Some of my clients, quick adopters, boom, done. Some of my clients, I really don't see the transformation really start to click until after the first year. And as a team, we talk about all the time, because we're partners. We're not just sitting here telling people stuff. We're partners. And we consider our clients' response or responsibility, their interactivity, part of that partnership. And we'll talk about it as a team. We're like, is this somebody who still has the belief of change? And why are they fighting the change they say they want? And is it us? Have we exhausted our tools? Do we need a tough love moment? Let's have the conversation. That's fun, but it's necessary, right? It's necessary part of the evolution. So we don't like to give up on people at all. I know that the timeline is more about them than it is about our work. However, we're here to be accountable, right? We're here to have a result. We're here to have impact. So it's a delicate balance, I would say, at the end of the day.
I think there's an interesting piece in the last couple, kind of topics we've been discussing here of the idea that like their problem is special and that therefore like it won't work. We've been joking in the green room talking about floating tanks and back solutions, and it's like my back pain's special. That won't work for me. I don't believe you. And it's like because you're just so unique and you need to be special. And there's that weird kind of thing that happens with that. And could you talk some about maybe why you think that perpetuates? Because the thing that comes to mind for me as I was thinking here is it's got to just be this like denial of the fact that it's been their fault the whole time, and that it's like, or you know what I mean, like the lack of action or something along those lines. That it's like, oh, if this works, then it proves that I could have been doing this the whole freaking time. Do you think it's something like that, or what are your thoughts there?
So I do think it's a defensive mechanism. I think that we all are human. We all experience hurts and disappointments and discouragements. And what you do with those things really determine your future. And let me give you a personal example. I'll talk about myself in this way. Maybe, 10, 15 years ago, I had a friend go, Leslie, you have walls. And he goes, and I think it's so interesting that your office actually has walls too. So I carved out a space of my very big dining room for an office at that time. And I put bookcases up because I was trying to get some privacy, And he was like, but look at you built walls where there were no walls. And I sat there and I thought about it and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But why did I feel the need for the wall? And I had to go through that thought processes and processing to ultimately take it down. Now, I'm one that you shine that light on me and I took the bookcases down like the very next day. I take quick action. But I do think as people go through their entrepreneurial journey, we first forget it's a journey. And sometimes you get flat tires and detours and wrong turns.
Damn blew a head gasket back there.
And I didn't
Sorry,
know that
folks. There's only a few out there that'll probably understand that, but
I did. But so there's those moments that we can't control, but they still have an emotional impact. So we tend to build in hurdles. And especially in business, this is where we might make the client sales process really difficult or the employee onboarding really difficult, right? And so there is this maybe maturation of understanding that, yes, please feel the hurt, take the moment to grieve because grief is real in business, but then move on. You've got to pick it up, learn, and move on. Otherwise, you build up too many obstacles and it just slows down the business. So to your point, I think it's a defensive mechanism that we haven't really learned how to positively process to have something better.
So taking down the bookcases, that's easy. How did you self-check yourself going forward in the mental bookcases, the mental wall?
Avoiding the next bookcase.
Avoiding the next bookcase.
Yeah. So I tend to throw myself into things, if you will, that are very uncomfortable. I personally seek out the thing that I would feel to be the most uncomfortable and throw myself into it. Because what I know is I have a high sense of integrity. I have a high sense of personal responsibility. If I put myself in the middle of something, I want to do my best and I won't quit. That's just me. So I know that about me. I'm like, poof, put yourself in. But I think about everything, even in my own business. And this is how we sometimes will encourage change, is sometimes when it's the change that's in your business, it's the hardest thing to do. So I actually will try to find something totally different to go change, totally different to go new, and then borrow that into the thing that feels hard. So for some that, personal might be skydiving. For others, it might be stand-up comedy. There's a variety of things that people are scared of, right? And just finding a way and proving to yourself that you can do that thing that is fearsome. Otis, to go back to your comment at the beginning, and still live and actually maybe even have a great time, or go, I did it. So much fun. I'm done. I don't need to do it again.
I won't have to do that.
And that's okay. And that's okay too.
Do you remember what you did?
I got on the board of an organization and really, because at that point in time, it was much more about allowing people in. And proving to myself that I could build a community. My first business had given me some moments to have grief, if you will. And it was how I was protecting myself, was not bringing people back into my fold. So perfect topic for today and your show, by the way.
Well, I would love to hear your thoughts on the idea of like the wants versus the want-to-wants when it comes to clients like that. Because I think that's an interesting thing. We as coaches, you can tend to hear the subtlety that we're talking about, the tonality of things, of what somebody really wants and if there's holdups and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, that is kind of a personal decision. I would love to hear your kind of thoughts, maybe a story with a client of helping them to tease that out of, it's like, hey, you talk about all these things here, but I can tell you're not really that into that. It's an idea that you like the idea of, like we use in rugby, we say all the time. It's like, you like the idea of being a rugby player. You don't want to go work. It's real simple. Like it looks cool. Oh my gosh, look at that block A. It's so cool and all this. It's like, but it's like, do you want to be at the gym at 5 a.m.? Yes or no? And it's like, if you really want this, then you would want the gym. If you really want to make your business better, then you would do the work. How do you help people to kind of tease those two out?
I will say I've even had clients where I have said, you want to be the CEO of your company, but you're not willing to do the work of a CEO in your company. So what is it that you really want? Why is it that CEO? Why is that the thing you want? Because honestly, I can tell you about a million ways to get affirmation, to be in leadership, to be the boss, right? But if you're not willing to do the things that your business needs you to do, then why this? Like, I always go back into the, like, what are you after? And usually I'm really thinking about what's the alternative motive. And it's one of those things that we start with. So we did have a client. It was a bit of a turnaround situation where I had that conversation, because when it came down to it, if you're going to turn around your company, you need to take action. You know, you're likely in the situation you're in because you haven't taken action. And Martine can help you make it super simple. We have gone through scripts and doing the writing and, you know, doing the work with you in the practice. But at the end of the day, I cannot pick up the phone call and call your debtors, your creditors, whichever it is, whoever it is you owe money. Is that creditors? Creditors, right?
Creditors. Yeah. Creditors.
Okay.
Debtors are the people that owe you money.
Yeah. There you go. Well, there's usually that too. It's so funny.
That's true.
It's so funny how their money is one of those issues that people will shy away from. And when I have creditors, I usually have debtors in the business, which means we need to pick up the phone and we need to smile and dial. I just called them. I know. Call them again. Whose business is it? Theirs or yours? And are you willing to go out of business because you don't want to give them a call? And I think it's those tough conversations, but that is one of those situations to where people want the title of entrepreneur or CEO, but they're not willing to do the role and the work of it. Or that, I don't know, maybe they think that's what Fortune 100 companies do, where the CEO just sits in his office and does nothing. You know,
we're going to pontificate about business growth in this new market space. And
we have so much energy and enthusiasm. The business is just waiting to come in.
That's right. Because efficiencies and effectiveness of the team working together will help us grow. That's like a Dilbert cartoon, isn't it?
Well, they just want to be down to the business factory. Oh, yeah.
So I do think it exists. And Camden, I just really try to get into their why, you know, and really learn that. And sometimes it does take us a while to see, because sometimes people cannot express what it is that they feel or they're thinking, but their actions inevitably will play it out to the truth. And if we can figure out that, then we can see if we can help.
So have you been able to, I'm kind of thinking a little bit of an off the wall, in those blockers, you know, working with the CEO, and especially in the fear of confrontation, which I think is kind of a natural human thing. I don't know too many people that enjoy getting in arguments. I can think of one right off the top of my head. And she's a super nice lady too, but she's a debater. She loves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My younger son's a debater.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Onions on the sandwich or not. Oh, we're going to get into a discussion. That was Saturday afternoon, by the way. Thank you, Shelby Joe. Always a good discussion. But it really in that sense, because what I'm trying to formulate is that CEO, the leader of the organization that you're working with, has a cancer, a person that they do not want to confront. How have you handled that or helped that client, you know, truly handle that kind of a situation?
I would say we do that a lot. And here's the reason why I think we do that a lot is if your business has experienced any growth, chances are you're outgrowing some relationship as a part of that growth. Now, the longer that you do not have this conversation because you're perceiving the conflict, right? The worse it's going to get. And the more emotion, and usually emotion on the owner, on part of the owner, that gets built up. So by the time we get in there, there's a lot of anger. Like we've passed concern, frustration, we're in Angerville, and I'm like, well, at the end of the day, one of the first things I try to do is remember that the other person is coming from a good place. We may not agree, but if we have to at least believe that they're coming from a good place. There are those that don't. I totally get it, but I'm going to give everyone the benefit of doubt until you prove me otherwise. And then it's really going in to look at what's going on here. Now, a lot of times when we'll come in and we're looking to grow and scale a business, inevitably, if there is a team involved, there's one person who has been with you forever or a while. And they have been so critical to your success, so critical to getting to where you are. But they have inadvertently become the obstacle to getting to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And because that hasn't been managed quickly enough and soon enough, you're now almost like two bus drivers trying to drive two different buses in two different directions. And sometimes that relationship can get saved. Oftentimes, though, we have to think about what's best for the business and the employee and find a place where they can thrive so that we can thrive, if you will. And that does take a bit of a process. And it usually does start off with a conversation. But I will tell you, it's probably 10 conversations with the owner to the one conversation to solve it. Mm. Right? It's careful planning. It's carefulness. And it's treating with people with respect. And I think at the end of the day, you can avoid most conflict if you will just treat people with respect and believe that they are trying to come from a good place as well.
I love that, and I think that's a great way to go into the conversation. The next layer of the problem, I guess, that I'm thinking about there is, what about the person that does have the belief in the company, they want to help, that's all well-intentioned, and it just ain't going well. And it's like, there's no malicious, there's nothing, it's just the vision just doesn't quite line up for whatever reason. What are your thoughts on handling that?
So, we have this a lot too as well. So usually what we do is we'll take a step back and we'll even go back into job descriptions and looking at those things and affirming that they are what they need to be for the position that's there. Try to do a 90-day plan. We don't like to call it a PIP per se because there's so much negative connotation for people with PIPs. If we're going to try to save an employee, I'd like to do it in the most positive way. But look, at the end of the 90 days, it's a yay or nay. And I like one of the, and I forgot which book this is from, so forgive me, but it's like, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity for it? And are they hungry? And if any of those are a meh, 5, 6 or lower, then we have to just be honest. And the honesty is the really hard part. But in those situations, oftentimes our owners have networks of other companies that are looking for somebody, and maybe that transfer of an employee to another company actually works really well. I've had some really good case studies where that has proven true. Other times it's just that we have to lovingly but firmly show the door, right? And that does happen in some cases, but we do try to make sure that we can check all the boxes first, that we've done what we can do, that we've treated somebody with dignity and respect. And then, at the end of the day, if it's just not, it's just not.
It's interesting. And it's a bit of human nature, right? Because you want everybody to like you. I always find it ironic, though, that the inner circle people, that dude that's been with you since day one, and now there's that it becomes, and I can think of many examples. It becomes this weird sort of dynamic of a confrontation instead of the person that you should know, like, and trust the most in the organization, because the reason they were in the inner circle in the beginning is because they were a good friend and had the skills and believed in the thought and the idea, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. and then we don't do that. What's your theory of what the hell is going on in human nature with that? Why we tend to, because it happens all the time. Why do we tend to do that?
Help clarify that question for me. Tend to do what?
Tend to ignore it, avoid it. Instead of, this is the dude that was here when we were sitting around the kitchen table and eating beans and rice and beans kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, that son of a.
Yeah. I think at first it's loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from a good place, and it's forgiveness, right? I'm going to allow. I'm not going to say anything. Well, but we rationalize it at the end of the day instead of saying, ow. Like our team has a few phrases that we've developed culturally to let each other know when we got a zinger. I was like, ooh, that was a zinger. Woof. Felt that one, and it's a way because our network, is such that we know people outside, we know our team outside of work. And so when you've got that personal and professional, it is a little bit difficult to navigate. So we've set up some rules. And one of those things is, ooh, that was a zinger, and it's a conversation.
Code word.
It's a code word. So, in the moment that you said something that didn't sit well with me or that hurt in some way. I felt that. And it's something we can talk about and maybe not talk about in the moment. But we all have adopted just when in doubt, talk. When in doubt, talk. If something happens, talk. Not email, not Slack messages. Pick up the phone, get on a Zoom and talk. Because otherwise you infer inflection. You infer, sternness. If somebody's always personal with you and they go to formal, ooh, what does that mean? There's so much there. Just pick up the stinking phone and talk. That will clear the air. But I do think we just allow things to set for too long. Now, I will be the first to tell you, I have an emotional response. I can have an intense emotional response, which means I'm not going to necessarily talk about it in the moment. I will say, this is something we will need to discuss, but can you give me a few days to process? Give me a few days to sit and think this out. And then I'll come back and say, okay, we need to have a call. Now, Brene Brown calls it a rumble. I still think that has a little bit of a negative. It's like, we're going to.
I agree with you there too, because that's what rumble means to me.
Right? That's what rumble means in Texas. I'm going to just tell you, we're throwing down if we're rumbling.
I've had relationships like that, by the way. That was how we decided who was right and who was wrong was the rumble. I'm just saying.
And our debaters would love that as well. But I just think it's having that conversation. Now, if it's truly significant, I will go out of my way to do it in person. I won't even trust Zoom or a phone call to it. I want to sit down, look you in the eye, and let's talk about it. Because then you can read so much more. Even on this Zoom, we only see right? We don't see the rest of the body language. And that's half of communication is body language. So I do think we have to be considered. And this is something we'll coach our clients on. We're like, that was not an email. That was not a Slack message. You should never have said that there. It was inappropriate. It was an inappropriate form of communication in an inappropriate place. Pick up the phone. Like that's 9 times out of 10. That's the number one thing. But I also think, Otis, to your point, that people don't have structure for difficult conversations. And it's something that our team studies because we help guide clients through it. And I'm sure y'all do too, where you're like, okay, what is the goal? What is the purpose? What is the context? What are you willing to have? And what are you not willing to have? What are your boundaries? Right. And just going through and actually sitting and writing it down, it helps give a structure to the conversation so that you can make sure that all your points are met and that you have a productive outcome. I don't know what's your track record. I think like 80 to 90% of these conversations really actually go well. And the other 10% we're walking in knowing that there's a departure happening, and
that's the irony of it, isn't it? I mean, that many actually go well, even if Bob's no longer a fit. Bob knows He's no
yeah.
longer a fit. He just
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
want to confront you and say, "Hey,
Right?
Leslie, this isn't right for me anymore." Because he didn't want to let you down. That's the irony of the whole thing, isn't it?
It is. And I love that you brought that up, because the loyalty that keeps an owner from saying something is oftentimes the loyalty that keeps an employee from saying something.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think that was what I was going to add with that, is like, in talking about the structure, that's so important, because when you have a structure, you can be more proactive with it. You can hit these things earlier. Because when you're asking the original question of this part of the conversation, I was thinking it's this kind of funny thing we do where it's like, whether it's out of respect or, love for the person, whatever it is, it's like, I don't want to beat up Leslie about this. It's not that big of a deal. But then we don't really let it go. And then we kind of keep building. And it gets to a point where it's like, well, now I'm just going to scream at her. And it turns out it's about this little thing that I could just said, hey, why'd you email me that? You could have called me, like you're saying. Like those little things, when you have the structure for it, it helps. I would like to kind of dive in on that a little bit. We kind of joked about like the rumble being a little bit maybe too aggressive, of a metaphor with it. But I think there's something interesting there of the like encouraging the low level fights, if you will. That it's like, whatever that is, if you want to encourage it at the lowest possible level, because that's before the stakes get so big and it becomes personal.
Yeah.
Could you talk some about, what's your little bit of a framework with that? Or what's a better word for fight? Maybe we start there.
Here's where this framework came from. And unfortunately, we're relying on my adolescent memory, which we all know is a little colored. But my dad made me read this book. And I swear the name of this book was The Art of the Argument. And I hated the fact that he was making me read this book. But the book means that I really don't argue. Let me explain. I'll give a personal story. My husband and I were just starting to live together. I have quirks just like everybody else does. And one of my quirks is, unfortunately, I don't always do a really great job of closing cabinet doors.
I don't know anybody that does that around here in the McGregor household. I can just say that.
So, case in point.
I'm not going to say anything. My wife's
Is that a Texas girl thing?
I don't know, because I didn't want to slam the door, but I will be honest, I'm often thinking about so many things that some things I do very unconsciously, like try to close the door. So my husband was sitting there talking to my college roommate about it, and that upset me greatly, right? But he'd never really brought it up to me. Right. And I'm like,
going
okay,
around
there's
the circle on it.
Right. So my husband and I actually have had very few arguments. We might disagree. Need to go to our separate corners for a little bit, but I wouldn't call them arguments, because early on I said this. It's like, if it bothers you, I need you to tell me in the moment. If you cannot tell me in the moment, that responsibility is no longer mine. It is now yours. It is your bag to carry. And if you wait 6 months to carry that bag and all the emotion that comes along to it, I'm just going to let you know, I'm not picking it up. I'm not picking it up. So your choice. Tell me in the moment. I will do my very best. I will have to say, I do not have a cabinet door in my house that does not have soft close on it. We found another solution, right? But that was one of those concepts in that book of talking about the art of argument, is like, you've got to bring it up. You've got to handle it in the moment when the emotion's low, when the zing is slight, even no matter how slight. But if you choose not to, then you own all that baggage. Mm-hmm. I'm a no drama mama, and I'm a minimalist when it comes to carrying bags. Actually, I'm one of the women that come with the smallest suitcase possible, because I just don't like carrying things. I'm not carrying your baggage.
Literally, right?
Figuratively, literally, I'm not carrying your baggage. That's not my bags to carry. So I keep that in mind, and then that's one of those reasons why I'm always like, pick up the phone. If it zinged, let them know. Talk about why it zinged. Because you can resolve so much in the moment, or nearly in the moment. Sometimes it's not appropriate to do it, right there, but within 24 hours.
How much of that do you think is the person still kind of going back to what we were saying of, it's like the loyalty in that aspect of I don't want to make this little thing an issue, therefore I'm going to ignore it or accept it, but in reality, we're carrying that bag and being pissed off about the weight every single day. Could you talk some about that aspect? I think that's a little piece that we didn't quite fully address on this.
I will. So there's a song lyric I think of when I see this happen.
You're on the right show.
Yeah. Okay. So it's from Jars of Clay, and and the song is Tea and Sympathy. Mm-hmm. And at one point in time, it's about a husband talking to his wife about not going to her girlfriends and complaining about their relationship over tea for sympathy. Mm-hmm. And one of the strongest lyrics, I'm giving myself goosebumps. One of the strongest lyrics is, "Don't trade our love for tea and sympathy." Mm-hmm. So I think of that with my husband all the time. I'm not going to trade our love for tea and sympathy. I think the reason that we sometimes hold on to these hurts is so then we can go to other people and get tea and sympathy.
It's like we were saying earlier. It's because our problem is special, so we want to go get the sympathy for our problem. It's unique. I don't need to. It's really just way. It's so special.
But it's I'll say an unhealthy form of affirmation. When we can take our complaints, find somebody else that agreed with our complaints, and then they validate why we should be mad about these complaints. But nobody's solving anything. We're just moaning. We're doing a few things that I am Texas, and we do say some nice little words here. But we're just moaning, right? And we're looking for sympathy. But think about half of our world issues right now and all the stinking anger that's there. Where are we going for tea and sympathy? And where are we going for resolution? Mm-hmm. You see more tea and sympathy, hands down. You don't see people trying to resolve and come to compromise and talk about it and say, here's where I'm coming from. That's not what we have been taught to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we've lost that, and because we find it much more gratifying and I can't think of the right word here, but when we say, well, look at me, look at all these problems, woe is me, and then people go, yeah, woe is you, that's really hard, that's really sad, in that sort of way, and not the right way. Matter of fact, I joke about this. I don't joke about it. I talk about this. It's not a joke. It's straight up for our men's tribe, our Steel Men's tribe. It's like, hey, if you're coming here to look for woe is me, my life sucks, it's hard, this ain't it. Because what you're going to get from the Steel Men's tribe is, hey, yeah, that sucks. Let's go. Get up.
Yeah.
Move out.
Cowboy up.
Yeah.
And I think that hits it so well, because that's the thing I was going to add is, as much as like, I totally agree of it, that woe is me, just looking for the sympathy and how bad that can be, especially when you're doing it in place of something positive, like you were talking about, Leslie. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I was thinking, it's like, well, there is something cathartic about the vent. There is a bit of a mechanism there at the same time. So it's how do you balance that? And I think you really just hit the nail on the head there, Dad, of I'm going to vent. You're going to go, dang, that kind of sucks, Camden. Let's go. Like, and it's this level of, it's like, yeah, that does suck. You're going through it. We get it. And it allows me to have my emotional response. And then we can move on to logic. Because if you never meet the person at the emotional response, then the logic isn't going to land on anything also. We're talking, marriage stuff, right? How big of the cliche is that of the spouse that comes in and is complaining? You're like, well, you just need to do X, Y, Z. It's like, well, shut up, Leslie. I don't want to know about that. I'm mad about my day at work. Like, if you don't meet the emotion, then the logic is going to fall on false ears. I think that's such a big piece of it.
And I do agree with you, both of you, is that we do have emotion. We do need to process emotion. Like, we're human. This is part of our experience. Phenomenal. Process the emotion. And there is some cathartic release from like doing it, expressing it, maybe even yelling about it. You get it. It gets you out. But then what are you going to do next? Are you going to go find a new bucket to wallow in? I just looked this up as we were talking. This is almost like a version, what we're talking about, the unhealthy side of it, a version of Munchausen, where you're looking for affirmation and sympathy, and you're creating illness, strife, and conflict in order to get it. But I do agree, it goes back to, we don't always have a healthy way to process our emotions. And everybody's going to have a different way. Like I said, I need a few days. I got to process it out. I probably have to scream about it. My favorite thing to do is scream in the shower when nobody's home, because then nobody's like, oh my God, are you okay? Yes, I just need to let it go. That's all. I might walk it out. I might do something movement oriented to be able to do it, write it out. I'm very kinetic. But I process it. I allow it to flow. I feel it. I recognize it. I don't judge it. I move on. To your point. Now, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to make it better?
Yeah, it's such an important thing. I think the foundational point that we come back to, that we started right even in the beginning, is what's the action you're going to take. Mm-hmm. You can waller in it. And folks, if you don't know what that word means, just look it up, waller. You can waller in it and it ain't going to change, or you can take action to change it. Whether you're a business person that is, why isn't my business growing? Nobody will buy my stuff, or that person doesn't like me, or that hurt my feelings, all those sort of things. You can waller in it and it ain't going to change. Nope. Or take action and make the change, right?
True. Even the most imperfect action is better than inaction.
100%. It's always moving forward. So I'll give you, and just in case you hadn't heard it, and folks probably haven't heard it in a while, it's my Brazos River experience. So you ever been on the Brazos River?
Brazos River's in Texas.
Well, yes, ma'am. I know that. That's why I'm bringing that up.
Of course.
Yes. Well, not everybody in Texas has been on the Brazos River.
True that.
Okay.
True that. But I am native. I have been, and I went to A&M,
yes,
which is on the Brazos.
Well, I know. Yes, it is. I've jumped in the river a few times down there in College Station. But the thing the Brazos River taught me is you got to put the paddle in the water if you want to go anywhere. And when you put the paddle in the water and you grab a big old stroke of the Brazos River, then you can drive that canoe where you want it to go. And that's life. That's life. Mm-hmm. You got to take that action. You got to step into it, because you know what? That Brazos River's running down to the ocean. You can float it, then get stuck on a sandbar.
I was going to say it's not always deep.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of things like that. That's going to happen if you just float it. Uh-huh. Or you can put your paddle in the water and take charge and direct where you want to go.
Well, and I love that, because I've always heard, have you heard the phrase above the line? Mm-hmm. Okay, so above the line is ownership, accountability, responsibility, or the paddle, right? Below the line is bed, blame, excuses, and denial. And every once in a while, I'm like, I do use this with my children, and they hate me for it. But I'm like, okay, so where are we? Are we above the line, or are we below the line? They're like, it's all your fault. Blame. So where's blame? It's like, I see we're in blame. Understood. How can we at least get to responsibility? Mm-hmm. They don't like it when I do that.
It must be fun dinner conversations. Well, you know what? Talking about that, because I use this as a reference all the time. Camden asking me at the dinner table when he was playing rugby for me, and asking me how he did or something like that. And it's kind of the same sort of thing, but in the sense of, well, do you want the dad hat or the coach hat?
Yeah.
Which answer do you want sitting here at the dinner table? Because dad's going to say, I think you tried really hard, son.
Way to go. Keep going.
Hey, if there's one thing, it's I try hard. I'll take that. you see me running, you're like, he makes that look hard.
Yeah.
I would make it look hard too. Don't worry.
Well, I learned today, and reminded, because I was on a speaker panel Saturday with a good friend of ours, Chris Salem, and he could throw out them numbers, and he said 55% of the message comes from the body language. And I was just thinking, when you were talking about, the email, the phone call, the Zoom, no, go and see that person in person, and have that tough conversation, and clean that laundry up now before that stain gets permanent. So, yeah, because Miss Suzanne's going to spray it, but that spray ain't working on that shirt because of what I spilt on it again.
Yeah.
But I just think that that's so important. And I just wanted to reemphasize how important it is to see the body language. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, for me, I think this is one of those really interesting ones where you look back at your notes and I'm like, I learned so much, but I feel like I can't summarize it or pick a thing because it all just kind of ties up in a really cool way, which is a fun conversation. But if I had to pick one thing that I could get out kind of quickly, it was the idea of how important the structure is to be proactive. And that if you have a structure, it allows you to be more proactive with the conflict resolution and with helping your team through things and with coaching even. And it helps to work through those emotional aspects and get back to the logic, which is what they need. But it gives that structure makes it a little bit easier to work through. So I really like that.
Awesome. Leslie, how about you? What'd you learn?
Oh, I have a bad habit of reminding myself things, right? So I have a couple of difficult conversations to have. And I'm going to go back to the fact that we were talking 90% of these conversations go well, because one of them I'm like, I'm worried, but I'm like, no, I'm not worried. 90% they go well. I have nothing to fear. So sometimes we have to tell ourselves what we need to hear.
Awesome. Leslie, how do folks find you, connect with you, follow you?
Sure. Well, we are everywhere on nearly every social media, but we did put together a special page for your listeners today. So if you head to yourbizrules.com/CO, you'll be able to see we've got, actually, we talk a lot about our First This Then That, which is a book we recently released. We have a new one coming out shortly, but you'll be able to get
another book. So you got First This Then That.
Yes, that's the one. And then upcoming is Scaling Rich, where we're talking about actually a lot of the people side of growing and scaling a business and how to bring teams into alignment with change and enroll them so that it's not just the owner doing it all. So that'll be out hopefully in the fall. So that's what we're working on. But yeah, yourbizrules.com/co.
Awesome. Leslie, it has been a pleasure. It makes me homesick for Texas to hang out with you and talk about the Brazos River. Heck, we didn't even talk about the Trinity.
No, Trinity's right in my neck of woods.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
But ironically, I didn't spend as much time in the Trinity as I did the Brazos, which is weird when you think about it geographically. But hey, lady, thank you so much for your time today. It was a lot of fun, and we really appreciate it.
Well, as well, I enjoyed myself as well. I loved the conversation. Anytime, guys.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Leslie Hassler, for joining us today. You can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, that full archive is available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see you all next time.